Wink with Wink. Sounds like one of your plots, pal. Alrighty, our next guest is Ace Atkins. He is here with his 30th book, ladies and gentlemen. 30. This is called Don't Let the Devil Ride. It takes place and is fully just soaked in the town of Memphis, Tennessee. Our private investigator is named Porter Hayes. Some of you Memphis aficionados will know what that means. Porter Hayes digs in here and finds out that there's a woman's husband is missing and his business just seems to have vanished from the face of the earth. There's a lot of subplots, a lot of fun, a lot of barbecue, a lot of whiskey, cigar smoke, and Stax music in this book, y'all. Please welcome Ace Atkins.
Stax Records, cigars, whiskey, basically my autobiography. Is what this book is.
But enough about you, right? You know, as I was reading along, it helps, of course, that I do know you, but I just was shaking my head. I couldn't help but think, man, you are having some fun writing this book. For example, at one point, the damsel in distress said something, and Porter Hayes says, "Hold on, I'm coming."
And I told Jim there's only a certain amount of people that understand that joke. They understand, one of the great songs that Porter Hayes, the great songwriting team, did.
In the soul music world, Porter Hayes is equivalent to Lennon McCartney, and it's David Porter and the great Isaac Hayes.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
They created so much Soul Man and
There would be a
Something
Soul
Is
Man,
Wrong with
Hold
My
On,
Baby,
Come
Hold
On.
On, just like forever. And he's got, I think David Porter has so many Grammys, he's probably got them in his, in his basement somewhere.
Overflowing.
Yeah,
Gives them out
overflowing.
to trick or treat.
Exactly, just a legend, absolute legend.
So you name your detective, who happens to be a black Vietnam veteran who drives a Mercedes with a cassette player in it. I love that. You name him Porter Hayes.
That's it.
And then tell us the story of David Porter when he actually found, he's still alive, by the way. Tell us.
David Porter is still alive, and again, part of this legendary songwriting team. If you guys know the wonderful Sam and Dave, those were the songwriting team that brought all that stuff to life. In fact, there's a true story that in Memphis, before Sam and Dave would come in and record at Stax Records, David Porter and Isaac Hayes would test out their material. And a lot of people kind of thought of them as the real Sam and Dave. And then Sam and Dave was the persona that would go on later. But they were just absolutely incredible, amazing. And so I had an experience where I was doing an interview on the CBS affiliate in Memphis, and I started talking about this character, Porter Hayes, and being really representational of Memphis, and based on experiences I had in Memphis, and he had been a Vietnam veteran, and he had been around since 1968. He had actually been there when the King assassination happened. And the woman who was interviewing me stopped me right there. She said, "Is this a tribute to David Porter and Isaac Hayes?" And I said, "Yes." And she kind of nodded, and I didn't think much about it. And then later I found out she was very close to David Porter, and he actually showed up at my book signing at Novel in Memphis, which was one of the coolest moments of my life. Where, you kind of think, I'm not worthy. But how great to meet a guy that inspired me so much to create a character based on his music.
You think he's maybe in his 80s or so now?
I think David is probably late 70s, early 80s, and has more energy and enthusiasm and working on new projects than a guy probably 20 years old. Amazing person.
Man, that is so wonderful. You have, again, it's so Memphis-centric, but there's a lot of Ole Miss in this book. And you just say Ole Miss without even bothering to ID for readers who might in Utah or whatever.
Well, I think the real, I talk about Porter Hayes, but the real star of this book is a woman named Addison McKellar. And the premise of this book is essentially about a woman that marries very early, like several people, I guess, that go to Ole Miss. They get married very young.
Wait, what?
And then about 10, 15 years later, they wake up and say, who is this person that I married, and what do I exactly know about him? And in Addison's case, the question may be is not only is he a bad guy and not a great husband, but he actually may be an international arms dealer and a seriously bad dude. And so that's where the question comes in. But Addison has a lot of very fond memories of her great days at Ole Miss and riding around the square and taking shows in at the Hoka and at different places. And so that was very, very key to this book.
And speaking of the international element, you do have international intrigue in this book. There is
I I do, and it's hard to explain. I talk about it, I say, the entry point is, a woman trying to find out where her husband has gone, where he's been missing for 5-6 days. She doesn't know where he is. Ends up going down to his place of work, and then finding out that the place of work doesn't even house this office. She, asks questions of where he is, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's a jumping off point where I try to talk about there's Porter Hayes in Memphis, and there's barbecue, and there's references to Ole Miss, but there's also Russian contract killers. There's also a French arms dealer, and so it's like I have scenes that are set, partially mentioning in Oxford and Memphis and South Haven, but also in Rome and in Istanbul and Paris, and so it's all the great places.
I know that you're one of those writers who likes to go to the setting that you're writing about.
Definitely.
If possible, have the meal that the characters have. Did you do any travel abroad for this book?
There's a character named Gaudier who's one of my favorite characters in the book, and he's a French arms dealer that gets kind of roped into this kind of crazy scheme and international intrigue that's happening, and what Addison's husband, Dean McKellar, is doing, and crossing paths with Porter Hayes and that kind of thing. And I have spent a decent amount of time in Paris. And so when he mentions certain restaurants or places he's been and his experiences, don't ask me to speak French, but I definitely understood what his motivations were.
And so in 1 minute we'll be in Paris, the next minute we're at the arcade restaurant.
That's right. That's right, or maybe passing the Cracker Barrel down to South Haven. It's all very, very local.
You're well-rounded, Ace.
Thank you very much, Jim.
And by the way, what a great name Ace Atkins is. I mean, and that's actually your name. That's not a stage name. You're Ace Atkins.
I am, and in fact, when I became a newspaper reporter many years ago, almost 30 years ago, the editor who hired me said, "Don't you want to change that just to sound a little bit more professional?"
He hasn't written 30 novels. And speaking of your name, your dad was a professional football player, so you moved around almost like a military brat, right?
We did. I think that's why I'm comfortable writing about so many different places. I've been in this area. I've lived in Oxford almost 25 years. I've been going to Memphis almost 30 years. I know this area very well, but I've also, it's hard to keep track. I lived in San Francisco growing up. I lived in Detroit. My dad worked for the NFL, and his claim to fame was when he retired from coaching, he became a personnel scout and scouted new talent. And he convinced the 49ers there was this guy from Valley that was amazing, a guy that no one had ever heard of, Gary Wright. And my dad's claim to fame was he was the guy that brought Jerry Rice to the 49ers.
And you yourself played college football. I'll get off football. I promise.
That's all right.
You played college
can't
football.
escape it. It's been 30 years.
Well, for some of the audience.
It's like the mafia. It pulls you back in.
College football is like the mafia.
It is. It may be the plot of my next book.
Well, speaking of covering secrets, you have in this book, Don't Let the Devil Ride, you pass along the fact that Ole Miss sororities maintain a file of all the final exams going back to the 1970s to help their members.
I know. I don't know where I come up with this stuff, Jim. It just
we're going to blow the lid off this scandal. Is that true or no?
I don't know. I cannot confirm.
You haven't been rummaging around the sorority houses?
Well, that's a different story. That's something else.
All right. But you have that in this book. I thought it was funny. And you also have some, obviously you can't get away from it, Elvis in this book. And you you hang out in Memphis a lot. I'm just wondering what you think of this Elvis phenomenon. You're in a unique position over the years, and the people that come for so-called dead week,
yeah,
it can be a little ghoulish sounding. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think you cannot. I will meet people, especially friends of mine or people that I know from Europe, that'll come in and they'll say, well, I don't want to do Memphis or Graceland. I don't want to see Graceland. I want to go to Clarksdale and I want to see this, but I don't want to see Elvis. That's too overblown. But you cannot, in truth, write about Memphis without writing about Elvis. And I am a huge Elvis fan. I am an Elvis crazy nut. I get very deep local with you. I was a lifetime member of Graceland too. So I'm that deep into that kind of stuff. But I think Elvis, it's interesting. There's recently been a story that was saying the Beatles continue to gain new followers, but essentially Elvis has not gained the kind of traction that people would have expected, and that it's kind of dwindling his fan base. So yeah, but I love Elvis. I love going to Graceland and one of the characters in the book is named Joanna Grayson, and she had, her claim to fame all these years was in the late 60s. She was Elvis's co-star in Easy Come, Easy Go. And when her acting career kind of dries up and she's in her late 60s, early 70s, she moves to Memphis to be part of Death Week. She moves to Memphis to be able to do book signings and talk about her up-close and personal relationship with Elvis Presley, because anyone who ever met Elvis or shook his hand is famous. And we meet all those people. They're still there. If you knew Elvis, then your life is set.
Yeah, when I read Easy Come, Easy Go, I said, man, that sounds just like an Elvis movie, but it's probably not an Elvis movie. And I Googled it, and it really is an Elvis movie.
Well, I told you, Jim, I said that essentially I wanted to choose the worst Elvis movie, the one that no one had seen, because they wouldn't know if Joanna Grayson was the star or not. So.
And also, because of you in this book, this afternoon I listened to the soundtrack to Clam Bake. So, it was in the book, and I thought, yeah, it's got some good stuff.
Clam Bake?
Well, we whet our appetite. Do you mind reading a little bit from this book? It is a fun read.
Thank you, Jim.
Ace Atkins, let the devil ride.
So I'm going to start this reading kind of in motion. This is when the character Addison McKellar, who's an Ole Miss grad and ended up getting into a marriage. She's not sure exactly what's happened. And her husband has disappeared. He's been gone for 5 or 6 days. She cannot locate him. She cannot get the secretary to locate him. She goes to the office and just raises hell about, who are these people in my husband's office and what's going on here. And she ends up getting arrested. Her car gets towed. She ends up downtown Memphis and finally gets out. And now she's at, you guys know, of course, the famous 201 Poplar where everything happens. She's sitting there at Addison's sitting there at 201 Poplar waiting for her sister-in-law, Libby, who's also an Ole Miss grad, to pick her up. So I'm going to just start the motion right here with Addison and Libby. Addison waited on the steps of 201 Poplar for Libby to pick her up from this effing nightmare. She had called her for more than an hour ago, and if her sister-in-law didn't hurry up, she'd miss getting her kids from school. How much of a loser would she be then? She'd lost her husband, her SUV, 2 of her credit cards weren't working, and now she was standing amongst criminals and being brought into jail and hustled out by slick attorneys in shiny suits and two-tone shoes. While she waited, Addison tried Dean again out of habit, at least 10 times. She tried Amanda again, that's his secretary, and not surprisingly, went right to voicemail. Her message had been both truthful and nasty. If you don't effing call me back right now, I'll make sure you can't get a GD job cleaning the toilets at Walmart. Well, hell, she tried being polite so many times, maybe being nasty would light a fire under her, as Daddy used to say. And then when all else failed, she tried calling Daddy, but his caregiver said he was down with a nap until his shows came on. Daddy never missed a double helping of Gunsmoke and Bonanza in the afternoon. And some of the older men are like, yes, I know exactly what it is. She wondered how he'd feel about his only daughter standing outside 201 Poplar, handing out cigarettes to vagrants, streetwalkers, and pickpockets like GD Mother Teresa. Finally, Libby pulled up in her new black G-Wagon, merrily tooting her horn, a woman in a short sequin skirt and a bright red bikini top eyed her, drawing on a cigarette, and said, "Baby, that's a nice ride. You must be doing real good work for your man." Addison said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Oh, shoot. Don't pretend that you and me ain't in the same hustle. What you on, meth? Man, that's some nasty ass stuff." Addison pulled out her big Fendi sunglasses and headed down the wide stairs. Libby had parked in front of ASAP bail bonds. We put your feet back on the street ASAP, which is a real place. She dodged a few cars out on the busy road and walked around to the back of the G-Wagon and got inside. The air conditioner blew some welcome fresh air in her face. Addison peeled off her hoodie and sat in the front seat with only her sports bra fanning her sweaty chest. "No offense," Libby said, "but you look awful." "Thank you," Addison said, and sunk down in her seat, closed her eyes. "No questions, please. Just drive. I have to pick up the kids in an hour." "Where's your car?" Impounded, Addison said, "We'll get it later." Libby knocked the G-Wagon into gear, made an illegal U-turn right in front of police headquarters, Addison slinking down lower in the leather seats. From the radio, a cool-voiced public radio announcer explained the last set had been the chamber piece by Rachmaninoff, his voice so smooth and calm that she wanted to punch him right in the nose. "Where have you been?" Addison said. "I've been waiting over an hour." "I was in the middle of an appointment with my therapist," Libby said. "We were talking about setting boundaries and how bad I am about saying no, but then you kept calling and my phone kept on buzzing and I knew it was an emergency, right? That's what this is, right? It's an emergency." "Look at me," Addison said. "Look at my face. Look at how I'm dressed. I'm a GD mess. I guess I was expecting to be arrested. I wasn't expecting to be arrested for disorderly conduct. God, I smell like jail. My head is splitting and I need a cocktail." "Holy crap," Libby said. "Now we're talking. My day sucked too." Addison says, "Are you even listening to me?" Libby had always been stick thin. Today she looked so thin that you could see her collarbone sticking out of her low-cut peasant top, just like the little girl wore in Addison's old paperback copy of Heidi. She had a long face and huge brown eyes and hair. And when she wasn't so perfectly styled and carefully made up, she looked mousy and plain, and she could pass for a high schooler. Her trinket bracelet, baubles from all the cities she visited, jangled on her wrist. The radio announcer announced that they were continuing with Rachmaninoff's saddest and most haunting melody. "For F's sake, could you please change the station?" Addison said. Addison remembered when she and Libby were at Ole Miss. They would circle the square in their little red car, blaring Wilson Phillips' "Hold On." Jesus, they looped around and around as if they had somewhere important to go. Addison had, for 2 brief years, working in the publicity office of a big publisher in New York. 1 year assigned to this god-awful thriller writer who boasted 33 books in the Richard Jones series, better known in-house as the Big Dick Jones series, because he was the author always pointing out the hero's manly height and weight and incredible stamina in the sack. She had a killer in the Upper West Side and 2 of the best roommates in the world. All of it a fuzzy history after she met Dean McKellar at a Christmas party at P.J. Clark's in 1994. What happened? Thank you very much.
Ace Atkins, one more time, guys. Ace Atkins. Amen. 30th novel. This one is from William Marvel. And Ace will join us after the show at the Square Books table. Sign your copy of Don't Let the Devil Ride. And I would not be surprised if Square Books didn't bring some of his other books. As I mentioned, 30 books. I think at one point he was writing 2 a year, if I'm not mistaken. I was going to, quiz him on his family members. Name your wife and her birthday. Name your son. He's a busy man. And he was chosen by Robert B. Parker's family to continue the Spencer series set in Boston. So, of course, Ace dutifully went up to Boston and familiarized himself with that environment and did 10 novels for them. He also did 10 novels of a character he came up with, Quinn Colson. A lot of that takes place in the Mississippi Delta, very Mississippi backwoodsy, swampy kind of honky-tonks and kind of thing. And now this one, Don't Let the Devil Ride, set in Memphis, very urban setting, but as we said, just great stuff. A lot of inside jokes and a lot of tributes to Stax. So very proud of Ace for this new book. Also, while we have a second getting our choir together here, I want to mention very quickly our Thacker party on Saturday, this coming Saturday, October 19th. 5 to 8 p.m., y'all. That's a good, it's not even dark. 5 to 8 p.m. We're going to be out in Taylor, Mississippi at the Wonderbird Spirits Distillery. We've never been out there. We look forward to having our party out there. I timed it. It's a 12-minute drive from Oxford. It's 7 miles south, right before you get to Taylor Grocery and all the great, the city square down there. In fact, Taylor Grocery and Grit and the great general store in Taylor are going to provide our food. Wonderbird is going to help out with a cocktail that we're calling the Uber, and they'll also have wine and beer, and we're going to have our own Yalobushwhackers are going to play. You know you got to come out for that. And our special guest will be the novelist Michael Ferris Smith, who will be unveiling his new career as a songwriter and vocalist. And he has a band. He's got an EP they've recorded, will be coming out So he will play along with the Yalobushwhackers, 5 to 8 p.m. this Saturday out in Taylor. Y'all please join us. And like I said, it's a membership party, so you join up and be a Thacker backer and come in. And we have a silent auction set up with some wonderful, wonderful items. Dinner for 8 at Vish Bot's house. Y'all know the great Vish out there from the snack bar. We've got a cocktail party for 20 that includes John Maxwell, the great Faulkner actor. He's going to do Faulkner's Nobel Prize speech. We've got a dinner for 4 from Lusco's. You know, they're relocating up here, Lusco's, Pompano Horse Shrimp Dinner. We've got a 4-day stay at a St. Simons Island, Georgia villa. 4 days on the beach, y'all. I got to get that one, man. Nah, I'll just hang out in the backyard. It's cheaper. We've got 2 passes to the library. And I said, wait a minute, the county library, isn't it free? They said, no, the bar, dummy. No cover at the library for 1 full year. So on and on goes. We've got great artwork from Glenn Ray Tudor. We've got a quail hunt. We've got a blues deep dive at Ground Zero. Lots and lots of these wonderful auction items, which, by the way, are available to be bid on as we speak. They're online and it's live right now if you want to go to our website and go from there. And you can start bidding on this stuff and get down there on that beach at St. Simons. All right.